Hello, everyone. Welcome to Steady Stories. I'm Mackenzie, co-founder of Steady. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Emily and I created Steady to support people directly and indirectly affected by alcohol and substance use. We are live on the App Store, and Steady is a tech-enabled platform focused on reducing stigma around addiction and recovery. We provide connection, accountability, and validation, making the work of healing more visible and celebrated. We've really enjoyed launching Steady Stories. This is our weekly virtual gathering and centered around stories of recovery and resilience, perseverance, and personal growth. Each session features a speaker sharing their experience, followed by questions and conversation. And it's really an extension of what we're building with Steady. It's a space to hear real experiences, to feel a little less alone, and to be reminded that growth often happens in the small, everyday moments. Humans have been telling their stories since the beginning of time, and they're so powerful in many ways. Just the gift of hearing something honest spoken out loud. Some of our guests speak directly about addiction and recovery, while others share experiences related to rebuilding, healing, resilience, and personal transformation. Our hope is to create a space that feels welcoming, thoughtful, and open to anyone who is curious to listen, learn, and grow. So, as you listen tonight, we invite you to notice what resonates with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll save some time for conversation after the share. And if you'd like to watch any of the previous Steady Story sessions, the recordings are available in the Hello Steady app. We're glad you're here. Before we begin, we're just going to take a moment to ground ourselves. So I invite you all to close your eyes for a brief moment of stillness together. Tonight, I'm so excited to welcome Daniel Isenberg. Dan is an entrepreneur, investor, educator, and author who has spent decades helping people build businesses, strengthen communities, and think differently about leadership and innovation. He taught for many years at Harvard Business School, Columbia Business School, and is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial ecosystems. More recently, Dan has turned his attention inward with his memoir, This Book Is Not For You. And in it, he shares the deeply personal story of losing his wife, Carla, after a 4-year battle with cancer. And rather than offering a roadmap, Dan invites the readers into an uncertainty and heartbreak and love and healing, and reminding us that there is no right way to move forward through profound loss. So, Dan, I'm so excited to have you here
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
I met you because Emily had you as an entrepreneurship professor at Columbia. So
Right.
I'm just by ways get to meet you. I read your book, and it took me to a place, having experienced my own versions of loss, right? And it was so healing to hear your story, how it came out, and I could almost feel it throughout the book too. So I'm really excited to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to you to have you share a little bit about your story, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Mackenzie, and thank you, Emily, who's in a different screen. I can't see her. So, yeah, I appreciate that introduction, and it's everything you said is true, although not everything is true, you said. Where to begin? I've lived a very full life. By the way, please interrupt me anytime. This is the very first time I've talked sort of publicly about these experiences. But the story that I wrote, This Book Is Not For You, is about my late wife Carla's discovery that she had a very, very, very rare cancer. She went through massive, 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 incomprehensibly horrible surgery, chemotherapy, um, radiotherapy, and then because it was in her face, the cancer was here in her parotid gland. She had to learn how to talk again, eat again, swallow again, and all these other things. She did very successfully. She's a fighter. She's a Neapolitan neuroscientist, very sort of earthy, and extraordinarily intelligent as well, and a really unbelievable person. I mean, the only people who know her know that I'm not exaggerating. And then 3 years later, she was symptomless. And the further you get away from your surgery and all the treatment and you're clean, the better your prognosis is. Well, guess what? 3 years later, after the surgery, she discovered, again, symptomless, that the cancer had spread and was metastasized in her bones from her knees to her shoulder and throughout her liver, eventually to her lung as well. And that was in March 2023. Of course, I remember the moment. And then she embarked because she was still herself. I mean, it was still full of energy, and but also as a scientist and as a someone who knew an awful lot about medicine as well, she embarked and we embarked together on a very deep dive into the medicine. Her cancer is called ACC, adenoid cystic carcinoma, and there are about 300 cases of this a year in the United States. So it's 1 out of 1 million. I mean, she really got a lightning bolt. And the so we spent the first few months just delving into all the research and talking with the world's few experts, looking at everything, finding a few just very, very experimental treatments. And ultimately, in July, August, she started then feeling the symptoms and the sort of secondary symptoms from the experimental treatments. Had a unbelievably, I'm giving you the factual story. This is not about healing yet. I'm just giving you the background. And the wow. And then so starting around July, end of July through her death, December 7th, 2023, it was just downhill with all kinds of physical challenges, pancreatitis, one bout after another. If you've ever had that or heard, know people who have, it's unbelievably painful. A tumor on her sacrum that impinged on her nerves and caused her agonizing pain. Needed radiotherapy, um, therapy, radiotherapy, and then radiation. And then that created an open wound that she had in her back until she died, and so on and so forth, one thing after another. So those are the factual. The We had met. My second wife, my first wife, and I divorced in 2000 and around 2006, and Carla and I met 2010 here in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, with a lot of scientists, but by chance in a bar. It's a very funny story, as you know. There are a lot of very, very funny things in how we met. And we had, of course, well, I don't know, of course, we had incredibly wonderful relationship. She has a daughter, Rosella, my stepdaughter, and I have 4 children. And we got to know each other extraordinarily well, fell in love, long story short, and then had an amazing 10 years, just unbelievable 10 years together. So that's the sort of background. And then she died. And we can go with this any way that you think would be helpful. This is not about substance abuse, obviously. In fact, to sort of, in a way, sort of the opposite, because Carla was an extraordinary drug lightweight, and she, if you gave her like a dose of morphine, she'd say, "Give me half," or you gave her a dose of oxycodone, she'd give me half, or whatever it was that she was taking, lorazepam, give me half. All the controlled substances she had. I mean, when she died, I had to clean out all of her medications, and she had like a, you know, the street value of what she had would have put all of my kids through college. But so uh, I'm sure you want to talk a little bit, maybe the rest of the time, about my journey of healing or journey of grief, and I can say partial healing now. But let's go with this anywhere you'd like to go.
Sure. Um, so you just said partial healing too. And this book you mentioned in it, it was part of your healing process.
Absolutely.
Can you take us through, you know, that moment you started writing and throughout the process of writing the book and maybe how you felt in that change?
Well, maybe because I said partial healing.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have said that a week or two ago.
Mm,
This is an incredible process, and incredible, not necessarily in a good way, by the way. Um, but I can say now that the last few weeks, and it's now 2.5 years,
mm,
and the last couple of weeks, I live here in Woods Hole, Massachusetts,
mm,
the same house that Carla and I lived together in. We had a house in Boston and a house here.
mhm,
And when she died, I consolidated, moved the house down here,
mhm.
and I have pictures of her all over I mean, she is in the house, right? She's everywhere, and
Yeah.
the memories, of course. And you can see her picture up there.
Yeah.
That's really what she's like. I mean,
Yeah.
she just laughed all the time, except when she was suffering.
Hmm.
And but just I'd say a couple of the last 3 or 4 weeks, I'd been in Athens. I lived in Athens all winter long, just because the winter before was extremely tough, and I won't go, I can go into it, but it's not that relevant right now. But I came back in April, and in May, June, as the weather was getting better, I started feeling sadder and sadder.
Mm,
And the 2.5 years later, this now, I realized that I was feeling really still grieving for
mm,
her. But it was different this time is I thought I shouldn't.
mm.
I up here I don't think I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But in here I thought I shouldn't.
Mhm.
And it took me a while to figure this out that I was pushing against the grief.
Mm,
Again, I think that's one thing about grief is you try, at least the grief was extraordinarily heavy when
yeah.
she died, and for a good year and a half for sure. And I realized that one of the problems with the grief was I was trying to push it out. I'm trying to reject it. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
make it not part of me because it's I'm sure some people in your
Yeah.
audience here have experienced it. And you try to push it out.
Hmm.
And the and eventually what happens is, at least happened with me, and that was part of writing the book itself. The act of writing the book was and that was a year and a half after she died. I just sat down. I didn't write a book. I sat down just to write. And I
Yeah.
wrote, I wrote, I wrote, I wrote, and it became a book. But for me, that process was a process of incorporating the grief and the loss into me. I can imagine it's like if you lose a limb,
Yeah.
and eventually that's who you become. You're that person without a limb or with a
Mhm.
prosthetic. That's who I am, or without an eye, or without something. And that's what happened to me in writing the book is I didn't grieve less. I That grief became incorporated inside of me as my identity, part of who I am. I am
Right.
Dan grieving. I am Dan without Carla.
Yeah.
What surprised me is that stayed.
Mm,
And the grief part of it was still there. And I found myself, just because my head was saying, it's 2.5 years, like, what the fuck? And uh, and I realized that it's a little bit, I'm going through physical therapy now for some other purely physical issues. I'm 74, everybody. So, and one thing, when you work a muscle, you probably know this, you're athletes. And when you work a muscle, there's an antagonistic muscle. That's just part of physiology to not hurt yourself
yeah.
with you have a muscle that pulls in the opposite direction. And I realized that that was happening with my grief as well. I realized the last couple of weeks that part of what was difficult about it was I wasn't relaxing my arm or relaxing my grief. I wasn't letting it come out. I wasn't letting it. It was eating me up because I was pushing it
Right.
again.
Right.
And I had this antagonistic feeling of you shouldn't be feeling this.
Right.
I'll
So
stop there, but let's ask me questions because
acceptance. Yeah. No, no.
I
I
can
think
blah,
that's
blah, blah, blah,
beautiful.
blah
No,
forever.
wait, this is great.
I used to be a
Uh,
professor. I can talk forever about nothing.
definitely not nothing. There's a part that I read. You've spoken about being seen and being known.
Yes.
Can you talk to us more about your philosophy there?
Well, philosophy is a big word. I'll say my thoughts, my thoughts.
Your thoughts, yeah.
The So one of the things that I experienced in my grief and I'm talking about the heavy grief in the year or year and a half after
Mhm.
Carla died, is that I felt very much unseen, unknown. And people would be very nice. These are my friends.
Right.
And they'd be very nice and very empathic. And they'd say, you know, how you doing? Which they intended well, but how you doing? Come on. Like it sucks. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel I almost literally, I mean, I felt there's a term that I learned. It's called um, takotsubo, cardiomyopathy.
Mhm.
And what that means, takotsubo is in Japanese, it means a a octopus trap. What happens, you put the octopus in a little, you want to keep it alive. When you eat live octopus, right? You put it in a trap, in a net, and it swells up. And that actually happens to your heart when you have a shock. It can happen and very frequently happens. Your heart actually swells up because it gets flooded with adrenaline when you have an emotional shock. And
Mhm.
you can literally die of a broken heart.
Yeah.
And I felt that there was a knife in my chest. I felt like someone had stabbed me in the chest, and it was just there.
Mm.
So and that was for the first year and a half of the grief. And I felt that I don't want to say that nobody understood, but I
Mhm.
didn't feel that people understood, that people knew me. Very few people, except the people who had really been through something similar.
Right.
And so people would say, "How you doing? Uh, Good to get your mind off things. Uh, you know, are you alone? Do
Yeah.
you have someone to be with you?" I
Yeah.
just wanted to be alone, leave me
Yeah.
alone. Like I wanted to sit and cry all day long, and I think that was good.
Mhm.
And so I felt unknown. Those are my words, unknown. And I began to realize that that's could be a fundamental need. That's why actually I published the book, because I love the book. I really do. I've read it so many times. I've listened to it so many times, and of course it reminds me of Carla and allows me to think about her and what we went through. But I published it because I wanted to be known. Think about, why does an artist, and I'm not saying this is great art or anything, but why does an artist who just loves this painting that he or she made, but it's not the same when that artist puts it in a museum for other people to see.
Mhm.
Or a sunset, you see a beautiful sunset or something beautiful. I see a lot of sunrises. I go fishing a lot early in the morning, and I take pictures to show people, and it changes the experience. There's something, and this sound at some level obvious, at some level, it's not obvious enough. And that is, we are social people. And I think just rubbing up against other people, talking to other people, exchanging your feelings with them it changes who we are. I could say more about that because I've thought a lot about being known, but let's go where you want to go.
No, I'd love to hear where you're going to take it too, because I think I'd love to ask, like, what would you have wanted to have people ask you in those moments,
So
so
it's
that you
interesting.
felt seen and
I
known.
I listened a week ago to the only first episode ever I listened to of the New York Times piece called Modern Love.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
reason I listened to it was because the interviewer was interviewing a woman whose son was killed at the age of 5 in a skiing accident, believe it or not.
Oh.
And she said, I mean, it was like she said exactly what I felt. And I thought it was just me who felt that way. I don't want anyone to ask anything. What
Mm.
I want them to do, I wanted them to do. I wanted them to show up. I wanted them to bring the food. I wanted to take in the mail. I wanted them to just mow my lawn. I wanted them to just do. Don't ask. Don't say, just do. Just, come in my house. I have only one friend really did this. And he would come and I'd say, no, it's not the right time, Josh. He'd say, okay, fine, no problem. And but just come, just show up.
Right.
And I thought it was just me who felt that, but I realized other people have felt the same experience.
Yeah.
Don't ask anything. There's a really for me, a wonderful chapter in the book. The book's very short. It's like, uh, um, 100 pages long, and maybe it takes a couple of hours to read it. You can read it in one setting. There's one, ch and the chapters, there are lots of chapters, but they're very short, thank
Mhm.
God. And Emily can also tell you my lectures used to be very short. I used to lecture maybe 10 minutes per class. They, and there's one chapter called Staples Lady. And about 10 or 12 days after Carla was dead, I I had started like a week after that finding pictures and blowing them up at Staples, getting these big I think I forget 14 by 16 or so big photos made and putting them around the house, these beautiful frames. Just I wanted her everywhere. And there was one, it's going to be hard for me to tell this story. Uh, there's I had one picture of Carla naked, but with her back to me. And this was in my daughter got married in Israel. We were in Tel Aviv. It was a hot June. She'd taken a shower and she was just fell asleep on the sofa, gray sofa with yellow pillows, her back to me. She had sort of the curves. I write about this in the book. With if you get the impression that I adored Carla, you might be forgiven, right? Um, and she had very shapely hips and so it was just stunning. Her brown hair was flowing over the yellow pillow. I just took a picture. I never showed it to her, never told her because she would have made me delete it. And and so I wanted that picture next to my bed. I think we're going to hang that around the house for everyone to see. But I wanted it next to my bed. I put our marriage vows next to our bed and a couple of little things. And I wanted that next to my bed. And so I went to the Staples and I said to the woman there, and there was a woman that her face is just um you can't forget, unforgettable face, very craggy, very expressive. Everything moved when she talked. I found out later that her name is Barbara, but I didn't know it at the time. And I said to her, "Hey, I have a problem. You probably have a rule against printing these kinds of photos, but I just want it for if it's my wife, there's nothing pornographic. It's not even erotic. It's just beautiful." And she said, "Well, let me look and see." And she brought the woman manager over and they looked together and they agreed to they agreed to that they could print it. They would print it with so none of the guys would see it and they were very proper and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, she turns to me with this stare right in my eyes and she says to me, "Just breathe. Just breathe." Yeah. And I was like, in some ways like a deer in the headlights, but I just something just completely changed in me. Like I could tell that she knew what I was
Yeah.
going through. She didn't know that, she knew. And I said, I'll get, it's like a 2-minute interaction. I said to her, "Wow." And then she said, "Yeah, people ask you the funniest, the strangest things or the most horrible things. They ask you, how you doing?" And I said,
Mm.
"God, you know." And I said, "Yes, they ask how you're doing." And I tell them, "Ask me another question." And she says, "I tell them that I'm doing the doing." And I said, "Well, I'm not as nice as you are." And then I asked her, "So how do you know?" I knew she knew. And she had lost her daughter and her husband. And, rather than just lose my shit in the store at Staples in January, I just went to my car and I cried. And then I went back there after I wrote the book and I looked for her. I said, "Do you recognize me?" And she says, "Well, yeah, I've seen you around, but not really." And I said, "I wrote a book and you're in it. Yeah, there's a chapter on you, Staples lady." And so I I gave it to her and I walked out. And I went back a couple weeks later and she'd read it and she was so moved. And a friend of mine, unbeknownst, I told him, who knew Carl extremely well, he went by himself back and they talked about the book together. Anyway, ask me more
That
questions.
okay. Well, I want to say that's beautiful because I think those are the stories of what a healing process looks like too, and other people being involved in it is
But she didn't ask me anything. She
right.
just looked me right in the face. She stared.
Yeah.
And also I would say that the one thing that I craved, and I think it's true for a lot of people, but I'm not sure. You know, grief is it's sort of like true for same for everybody and completely different for everybody at the same time. There's underlying belief, I think, it's horrible. You've lost something that's irreplaceable. You can't imagine, and you can't imagine ever feeling differently. I think that's characters of grief, is that you think you'll never, there's no way you can ever get over this. You're going to be in this hell just
Mhm.
forever.
Mhm.
Um, but I forget where I was going with this, but she was just so you knew that she knew that experience. And oh, here's where I was going with this, the stories. One thing that I craved, and I don't know if everybody craves, I just wanted to hear stories. I called up everybody I knew who had lost somebody, and I said,
Mhm.
just tell me the story. Tell me the story. I didn't want any advice. Don't tell me what to do. Just tell me what happened.
Mhm.
How did you survive? How did what did you do afterwards? How did she die or he die or whatever? And how are your kids and what did they do? And I heard lots of stories.
Yeah. Um,
Is
for
this
the
going the way you want it to go?
Yeah,
I have no
I
idea
love it.
how
No, I could
this.
I love conversations particularly like this because I think that, there's such a people have a hard time talking about death. And I think it's
Oh,
something that needs
yes.
to be talked about
Oh,
so that
yeah. It's
you
taboo.
learn. Yeah, it is a bit. So I candidly, yes,
And I think it's taboo. You know why I think it's taboo? One reason is it's extraordinarily intimate.
mm,
And it's about as intimate as it gets. So, you people have their own physical intimacy in their bedroom, wherever, and that's private. And then there's the intimacy of childbirth, which is also
right,
largely private.
right.
But death doesn't have a clear place or boundary, but it's as intimate in its own way as lovemaking or childbirth, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so when talking about death, I think, especially if you and I have experienced our
Yeah.
own versions of it,
Yeah.
to do that, to talk to someone about your grief, it means penetrating this membrane. And
Yes.
they have to penetrate it too. And I think that makes us feel awkward.
Right. I think the vulnerability, if you can be comfortable with it as you are talking about it, like in the beginning of this, you said the grief was eating you up because you were pushing it or
Pushing
going
against it,
against
trying to
it,
push
pushing
it
against
out.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like talking about it and going into it in a different way versus pushing it. I find it beautiful. So one thing I do want to ask though, is for the audience who hasn't read the book yet or maybe has, what's the one thing or a few things that you'd like them to know about Carla?
Uh, you're really going to get me to cry. Uh, well, you can see her there. I mean, her face, she laughed. I was talking with a friend yesterday who came over and he knew her. He was a scientist. She was a scientist. And they talked, and he was a good friend. I've known this guy since my childhood. And everybody just fell in love with her.
Mhm.
And the way he put it, and it's true, is when she went into the room lit up. She was not quiet. She had a very loud voice, a very deep, raspy voice. Uh, she she used her hands. She's from Naples, so she used her hands to talk. If you tied her hands, she would never be able to talk. And, she was, of course, a scientist, really extraordinarily well-trained scientist. I know scientists. I grew up with scientists. My family were scientists, but she's extremely well-trained. And but I think everything she did with this fervor and engagement. I mean, my kids, she was my second, she was not their biological mother.
Yeah.
They just adored her. I mean,
Mm,
what can I say?
thank you for sharing. I just wanted to give the audience some context for
By
her
the
too.
way, I want to tell you something. I want to tell another piece of this process, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
And it's about dreams. And
Mm,
I know other people have had this. be if you haven't, sort of be ready for it. I've heard that a lot, it's very common. The
Hmm.
dreams, I didn't dream about Carla for a long time, weeks, maybe months, I don't remember. And when I did start to dream about it, she was rejecting me. And she was divorcing me. She was married to somebody else or going out with someone else. She was just ignoring me. At a conference we'd go to, she'd be on the other side of town living by herself. All these horrible, and I'd wake up in the morning with this terrible, terrible taste in my mouth because it takes a minute or two to realize you're not dreaming. And that's a very, very common dream I've heard from other people. Although at one point, and I write about this in the book, I did, to some extent, you can learn how to control your dreams. And I did control one of my dreams. And I actually, she was trying to get away from me, so to speak, at a conference. And I grabbed her by the shoulder and said, "Look, I really, really, really need you." And she just melted in my arms. And we were together for, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 10 minutes, I don't know, in a dream. And it completely changed everything for me.
Mm.
And I had a dream again 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, an amazing dream. And so I don't know, I don't really have very good advice. I shouldn't give any advice. Everyone's got to figure it out for themselves. But I did have a dream in which Carla was in the same town as I was. She was doing her thing, separated from me. And then she called me up on the phone and said, "Dan," in her rich voice with a heavy, heavy accent, she said, "Dan, I need to apologize to you." And the phone went dead. And then I woke up. So,
Whoa.
so what I did is I completed the dream when I was awake. I said, "Look, it's my dream, so I can make this in the way I think is it should, right? I dreamt it, and I can finish it." And I did feel in the dream, I felt a little bit of a sense of optimism. I knew in my gut that well, it wasn't her. It was the Carla that's inside of me because she's in me.
Right. Right.
So I knew that she wanted to say, "I'm sorry for leaving you.
Mm.
And I want to come back." She wanted to come back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it
That's
it just
beautiful.
made me feel good.
Yeah. I find it interesting that your dreams, as I'm also taking your healing process, has come to this come to this new spot that they're somewhat, correlated too, in a
I
sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a mystery, but you
Yeah.
gotta, again, I write about this a lot in the book. It's like this feeling I was just flowing down a river, the whole grief process. I was flowing down this dangerous, beautiful river,
Yeah.
with rocks and white waters and floating down and just out of control, but, safe because I could get to shore, but still just going through this beautiful, dangerous experience, not knowing where it was going, but knowing
Mm.
that I had to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk a lot about hearing other people's stories, but after each of these study stories that we've done, we hear a lot from the guests and their experience being therapeutic for them. So, can you talk more about why it's not only important to hear the stories as you wanted to hear from other people, but also to tell the story of your own as well?
I think it comes back to being known.
Yeah.
I think we want to be known, and that's why the story is important. I encountered a lot of people who told me their stories, and they benefited. They felt good from telling the story.
Right.
And the other thing is, it's very emotional, and so again, you get that membrane. If someone else on the other side isn't ready for it, because I'm already emotional, it's okay. It legitimizes their emotions. And some of them would have tears when they told me their stories. And even doesn't matter how long ago they lost their loved one.
Yeah.
So I think it's about being known. I think being known really is, I studied psychology when I was an undergraduate and graduate student. And that's so I studied Maslow's, hierarchy of needs. In fact, I once wrote him a letter and he wrote me back. But for what it's worth. And being known is not one of the five needs.
Right.
it's something else. And I think it's there. I think it should be a sixth need. I really do. We
Mm-hmm.
need to be known. And what that means is we need to be known by other people, at least one other person, the way we know ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
with all the good and the bad. And
Mm-hmm.
just imagine, I can go into this, and I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought about how to express it. And so I don't think we have time for that now, but I'll give you one piece of it. And that is, we all have this voice in our heads. We're in a way talking to ourselves all the time. It's a funny language. It's not sentences, but we're talking to ourselves. We have this ongoing narrative. Imagine, first of all, that you got in front of the mirror. I've actually done this. It's a little more, I don't want to be off color or anything, but it's a little more persuasive when you do it naked. But you get in front of the mirror and you talk, you let that narrative go out, and it's still you. You're in the mirror. It's
Right.
you. So now I have to explain more. I realize it's not very clear.
Yeah.
One of the famous social psychologists named Gordon Allport used to say the difference between you and not you. Imagine that you have in your mouth right now, you have saliva, right?
Yes.
And it's in your mouth and it's normal and you feel good about it. And it's about a liter. I learned from Carla because she had the parotid gland surgery. It's about a liter a day of water that your parotid gland, and that's saliva, and you swallow it, and you don't. That it's not disgusting. Take a Dixie cup and spit into the cup and then swallow it. Yeah. Well, it's the same saliva you've been walking your whole life. It's
Yeah.
the same saliva, but it's become not you. It left your lips and your mouth and it became not you. Now
Mm-hmm.
think about the mirror. You're talking in front of the mirror, and that voice that you're telling yourself, it becomes not you the minute you tell it to the mirror. And imagine that that mirror then becomes a window, and there are people watching you. You're talking to other people. That the you becomes not you, but you become known.
Mm.
It's a scary process. Just think of, anyway, that's a thought experiment.
Oh, that's a good,
I've
that's a
done
great
it.
one.
I've done it. I've done the part of standing in front of the mirror. I've not
Yes.
done the part of then turning it into a window.
Yeah. I know. That's like thinking about how your experience is projected out too.
Well, think also about tickling. I write about this a little bit in the book. Tickling, you can't tickle yourself,
Right.
but other people can tickle you. And there's something in your mind, the minute that that finger gets close to you, if it's yours, then you recognize it as you. If
Mhm.
it's not yours, somehow you recognize it in that split millisecond, that's not you. The not you can tickle you, the you can't.
Yeah. I like that.
Same finger,
Yep.
same motion,
Hmm.
but a
Totally.
different experience.
Hmm. Um,
I feel like I'm getting esoteric.
hey, that's where we went. That's where we're supposed to go. Um, I think if now that we're kind of talking about this behind the mirror, if you will, if there was someone out listening, and feel free to drop any questions in the chat, guys, but if someone's out there tonight carrying something incredibly heavy, what
I'm
would
sure
you,
there is.
yeah, what would you want them to know?
Oh boy. I I don't have any good advice. I think listening to my story and listening to other people's stories, if that's, I mean, one thing that I can say is it's a definitely a journey that has a start but has no end.
Yes.
And in a way, I think this mine wasn't any easier than anybody else's. In fact, it might have been more difficult in some ways. I don't want to compete on that dimension. But in a way, you've got to figure it out for yourself.
Mhm.
And that's very, very hard.
Mm.
But I think you've got to figure it out for yourself. You've got to listen to yourself, even if
Mhm.
that means you've got to listen to yourself saying, I don't want to listen to myself right now.
Right.
You've got to find your own way.
Mhm.
You are not alone. Other
Mm.
people have experienced horrendous grief. You are
Mhm.
definitely not alone. I got a huge benefit from hearing stories. They made me cry, they made me hurt, they made me do all whatever. But that was my experience. You got to, I think, I really believe you got to find your own.
Mm, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, we have a question from the audience that says, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. After my dad passed, I felt his guidance in so many ways. In so many things I did. I'm wondering if you feel that same type of thing happening with Carla.
That's a great lead in. One of the chapters in the book is called The Carla in Me. When after, I forget, about 7 months after I'd lost her, I had
Hmm.
a headstone put in. It's about 5 minutes walk from my house, very close, at a cemetery. And I'd go every day. And one day I went and I said, you know, and I would talk to her. I would talk to her out loud. When someone came by, I would stop, but rarely people came by. I was almost always alone. And I would talk to her, all kinds of things. I'd ask her advice. And there was for me, a very dramatic turning point where I told her, look, Carla, I'm not ready to let you go. I really can't. I know that, I'm going through this grief. It's not changing. It's there. I'm not ready. And her response, which was the Carla and me, that's what I discovered. I discovered that in the dream that I had about her where we hugged and reconnected.
Yeah.
But, and so that's when I discovered the Carla and me. And then at the headstone, the Carla and me pushed back. Now, of course, it wasn't Carla, it was the Carla and me. I'm sure she would have said these things because I really, you become,
Yes.
you become able, I think, hardwired to anticipate the other person's reactions.
Mhm.
And she said, no, you have to let me go. It's time to let me die. And the rest is in the book. And if I talk too much, I'll start crying again. But so, yeah, I completely understand. But the one thing I got two pieces of advice. I don't like advice. I don't like giving advice. But one of them was talk out loud. Just talk out loud. Don't, it's weird. You're not supposed to do it when you're alone.
Yeah.
Boy, that was good advice.
Yeah.
So I talk out loud.
Yeah. A therapy of words,
It's
letting them out.
yeah. And so she talked back as she would have in reality.
That's great. Okay, so I have a question because Emily and I were wondering, there's a part in your book where you say, I know that your six senses will never stop sensing her. And Emily and I were wondering, what's the sixth sense?
Pressure, I think, is a sixth sense, isn't it?
Mm, okay,
I don't know.
cool.
I
That's
made
what
it
I
up.
was wondering. I was curious.
I made it up.
Yeah. Well, if you're having these, six senses of conversations and maybe it could be some of that. Um, awesome. The other thing that
Pressure, I mean, the touch of pressure. That's pressure. It's not heat.
is
It's
not
not, yeah.
pressure. Okay, cool. Um, so there's another part that I'm gonna just you write about confronting what you call the abyss of 30 years ago, and you're really specific that you chose in life so fundamentally that when Carla
Right.
died, that branch you may have left you contemplating life. What did
About suicide, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. What did doing the work 3 decades earlier give you when something so traumatic eventually happened?
It gave me a sense of invulnerability, only the sense to myself.
Right.
In other words, I could face the worst thing in myself and survive. The
Hmm.
worst fear, the worst anxiety, the worst darkness, the worst anything, I could face that.
Hmm.
And it gets its power from me running away from it. It doesn't get me, it loses its power
Yeah.
when I go into it, when I face it, when I
Right.
experience it. And maybe I haven't thought about it until right now. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I think the grief, I think, has evolved into some mostly painful, still very painful, but a positive force in my life. The grief is really a positive force in my life. Would I rather not have that? Yes, I would rather not have that. But it's incredible how much I've grown as a
Mm,
result. I think I think I'm a better person. I really do. I think I'm a nicer person. I think
Wow.
I'm a more empathic person. I think I have more grace. I
Wow.
think I'm just, I like myself better now that I've gone through the grief.
Wow. You've transmuted that grief
Is
into
that a
something.
word,
I
transmuted?
don't know. I've used it. I use it
It's
a
the
lot.
seventh
So
sense.
I'm
It's the seventh
trying
sense.
perfect. Yeah, I guess in your interactions with people too, that's what I was wondering about. Like, has that experience changed how you do what you've done, right?
Well, you
It's
mean the
made
experience of,
like,
of confronting my
yes.
fears? It's hard to describe that experience, but I think it comes back to this sort of protagonist and antagonist muscle. We
Hmm.
spend a lot of, I spent a lot of my time stopping the bad feelings, stopping the fears, stopping the anxieties. And
Hmm.
that, and when I stopped stopping, they poured out, but I realized they couldn't kill me.
Right.
Why do you push so hard to stop them? Because
Yeah.
you're afraid of them. They're overwhelming. You'll explode.
Right.
You'll go into a panic. Something will happen.
Yeah.
I really think that I spent a huge amount of energy
Huh.
fighting back, fighting against the grief, fighting against the anxiety, fighting against the fear, fighting against the rejection. And you
Yeah.
fight, A, I think it gives it power. And B,
Yes.
you use up a lot of energy.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm going to be taking that with me this week because that's so true. And you can feel it kind of internally when you come up against it. It's like a wall.
It's very scary, though. It's very frightening. I think that's why, for me, I discovered that I could do this in the
Right.
context of a counseling relationship,
Yeah.
professional relationship. It was funny. Her name was Sarah, and um, she was not a close neighbor of ours, but she was in the same general area where we lived. And I would go to her. And I think I had maybe 10 sessions altogether. And I don't know how this happened, why it happened. I think I was in my 40s by then.
Yeah.
And I would just go in, I'd sit down, and I would just start sobbing my head off uncontrollably. No reason. No, like nothing, nobody stepped on my toe or anything. I would just
Mm.
start sobbing.
Mm.
And after 8 or 9 sessions or so, it sort of stopped. She would cry too. It was all in a way very sweet. I mean, she started crying,
Yeah.
but but it made it gave me the courage because nothing could kill me. I mean,
Right.
nothing. If that was the worst,
Right.
bring it on, baby.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I want to end with this question we asked everyone, and it's something that feels important to steady and staying steady. We, can have support, community, and connection. But at the end of the day, we all come back to ourselves and that relationship and how we speak to ourselves and how we care for ourselves. It's what carries us through. So I'm curious for you, what are some practices that you engage in to feel the love within yourself?
Oh, I I don't think in those terms, so I have to sort of translate
Yeah,
into my terms.
totally.
So I love people. I
Hmm.
have 5 children, four biological and one from Carla. And I have, in August next month, I will have 5 grandchildren. And the, it's funny, I had a long talk with my eldest son just today, and he was angry at me about something. It's okay. We talked and they're honest. He expressed it, and I listened too. The, um, they're the only people that I can say after Carla died that I really love completely. And by loving them, I feel love is this funny thing. It's not a zero, it's the opposite of a zero sum.
Yeah.
It's and the more you give, the more you get.
Mhm.
So I don't think that I would feel, I'm not sure I'm answering your question at all, but I'm not, I think that by having those relationships,
Yeah.
I love myself better too. But loving
Yeah.
myself is not a really, it's not an objective. I think it's a byproduct.
Yes.
The but I do feel joy now. I didn't feel joy for a year and a half after Carla died. I felt no joy. Life was black. I mean, you think what's the Painted Black, the Rolling Stones song? I mean,
Yes.
it was painted black, baby. It was really black. And then the leaves started coming back on the trees and the colors started coming back. And I found myself feeling happy again every so often and then more and more. And it's funny because as I wrote the book, that was a year and a half after she died. At the end of the book, I don't know if you got to the very last couple of sentences, but they're kind of they come full circle in a way
Mhm.
that I felt I felt joy again. And
Mm.
but the joy was almost indistinguishable from the sadness and the grief. They just
Mm.
became just so intertwined. But there was joy there.
Mm. I love how you answered that question because those relationships around you are so important to the love that we feel within ourselves too, right? So if you're tending to yourself in that way, how can you not feel that? That's like the service part of it too.
But and by the way, I really believe that having one of those relationships changes your life.
Yes.
Having five or six, of course, but having just one
Yeah.
could be a teacher, could be a dog.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And thank you. Um, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And thank you
Thank you.
for sharing in the way that you did.
Well,
Just
thank you for doing what you're doing, you and Emily. Thank you both.
yeah, this is I so enjoy having these conversations and yours how you there's just a beauty to it. I maybe can't explain all of it, but you shared the space and thank you for all of you that showed up. I think that wisdom comes through these experiences too, and just hearing it, feeling a little less alone, and having one of those relationships that I'm taking that with me for sure. So we're really glad to have you. We're glad to everyone who joined. Thank you so much. We're here every Monday, and I hope that everyone has a beautiful rest of their evening. Thank you again, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night. See ya.